So it was the summer of 2016. The US presidential cycle was well underway. And in July of that year, to the surprise of many, Donald Trump landed the nomination for the Republican Party in the presidential race. And Donald Trump is known for numerous things, through the history of his career, like the time he had Trump steaks, or when he was on WrestleMania, the fact that he's a real estate mogul. All of those aside, probably one of the biggest things that Donald Trump is known for is the Trump Tower, that is named after himself. The Trump Tower is known worldwide. It's a 58-story building located in Manhattan, New York City. The tower itself is a mix between business and residential, but it's famous for being the home of Trump himself. He actually lives on the penthouse in the upper few stories of the building. In addition to him living there, the tower became increasingly more popular to visit during the time of the 2016 election. But really, people in this time just wanted to catch a picture of themselves in front of the Trump Tower, be it like a smiling picture of them being happy that they're there, or maybe one of them flicking it off. Most of these photo ops would be limited to, out front of the building or maybe within the first few floors in the public areas, because this building has some pretty tight security. You're not going to be able to go up to the top floor and speak to Trump or flip him off or give him a hug, whatever you prefer. Or is this security really that tight? Because back in August of 2016, a man was able to scale the walls of the Trump Tower using suction cups. The question is, why? The question is how, and the question is what happened to this guy after he did it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the real story behind the Trump Tower climber. Let's go ahead and dive right into this one. This story begins with us introducing the man behind the climb itself, and this guy's name is Stephen Rogata. At the time that all this went down, Stephen Rogata was a 19-year-old kid from Virginia. One thing that's interesting about this kid is that he had his name changed back in 2015. His previous name was Michael Joseph Ryan, but for unknown reasons, he had it changed to Stephen Rogata sometime in 2015. He's a resident of Great Falls, Virginia, and lived with his parents. And not much is known about Stephen's childhood years, but there is some information that's become available about his activities when he was a student at Langley High School in Fairfax County, Virginia. So we have some information about his late adolescence, teenage years. Fellow students claim that Stephen was a member of the school's debate team and described him as intelligent and politically active. Noted he was a strong proponent for conservative values and pushed for Republican Party ideals. He enrolled himself into advanced placement economics and government classes, so clearly the kid had some sort of political aspiration. And outside of school, Stephen would participate as a volunteer for the Mitt Romney presidential campaign back in 2012, and he ran his own political blog website. So political alignment aside, at least this kid is passionate about something. There's a lot of kids that don't have anything that they're working forward to advance in their lives, and it seems like Stephen at this point was really passionate about politics, and that was his driving force. And it's important to note that as we go forward, because this driving force would eventually lead him crashing into a brick wall. Now, Stephen did live at home with his parents at his time, and his parents have made some statements in the past that give a different perspective on this kid and make one suggest that he might be troubled in some way. His parents tell an anecdotal tale about Stephen. One time when he was 18 years old, he became angry when they took away his internet privileges because he was spending too much time on his blog that he managed online, and he was neglecting his schoolwork. Quote, his entire life focus is on that blog, his mother said. His parents elaborate because of him basically being grounded from the internet that he ran away from home. And a day later after him running away from home, police called his parents and said that they found him in nearby Petersburg, Virginia, and they went and picked him up, and all was sort of okay for a while. But it was clear that Stephen and his parents weren't seeing eye to eye on things. He was very passionate about this political stuff, and I can only imagine that they just wanted him to be like a normal ass kid. But whatever the case, after he was brought back from running away, Stephen would continue to live with his parents. Stephen Rogata dropped out of high school during his senior year, which surprised many because he was at the top of his class at the time. And why did he drop out of high school? Well, the short and sweet is that he was hyper-focused on this political stuff. He really wanted to get involved in politics and saw school as basically, not fulfilling in that degree. So in the meantime, after he drops out of high school, he's got all this extra time on his hands. Surely he'll go to some political rallies, go to a Trump meetup, or do something like that, right? Well, Steven Rogata doesn't do any of this stuff. He does about the most extreme thing possible you could to get the attention of Donald Trump. All of this campaign, all of this ancillary stuff wasn't going to cut it for him. He had to speak to the man himself because he had an important message to deliver that would turn the tides of the election and guarantee Trump would get in. So throughout the time of early 2016, Steven had devised a plan to meet up with Trump and deliver his, quote, important message. He thought the best place to guarantee an audience with Trump would be to go to the man's place of residence, the Trump Tower in New York City, and speak with him directly. But he couldn't just walk inside the tower and take the elevator up to Trump's penthouse suite. There's no way security would let him. So what does he decide to do? Well, he jumps to the most logical train of thought that anybody would jump to. Climb the wall of the tower with suction cups, go to the top floor, and just bust into Trump's room and talk to him. Now, climbing a wall with suction cups is like a cliche that we've seen in cartoons and spy films throughout the years, but it's actually proven to be possible. There are several examples of people scaling buildings with suction cup-like equipment. Take, for example, some of Dan Goodwin's infamous climbs back in the 80s and 90s. It's definitely possible to scale a building with suction cups. I think they've tested this on Mythbusters before as well. The suction cups that Rogata would go on to use appear to be made by an industrial supply company called ZORO. And they make these suction cups not for climbing, but in the use of sticking onto heavy objects and lifting them with other equipment. Each cup can hold approximately 175 pounds or 79 kilos, and they go for about $90 online. Nonetheless, this is what he would end up using for his big plan. So he orders the suction cups and he does little small practices of his climb on this nearby 3-story building that's close to his home. And all of this unbeknownst to his parents. In order for him to get to the Trump Tower in New York City though, he would have to somehow get there without his parents knowing. Otherwise, they would bust him and the plan would be a crapshoot. But luckily for Steven, his parents had planned a vacation to Italy where they would be gone for a few weeks in August and he would have the entire house to himself. And a side bonus to this was his dad would be leaving his car and the car keys back at the house. So Steven not only had the house to himself, but he had a free vehicle which he could take up to New York City and execute his plan. So with his parents across the ocean in Italy, everything was ready for this plan and for this ball to start rolling. But before heading to New York City and the Trump Tower, Steven Rogata would upload this video to YouTube sort of explaining why he's doing what he's about to do. He's speaking from a perspective as if he had just done the deed, and it's sort of talking back on why he did it. So just take a look at this video and you'll understand.
Hello, Mr. Trump. Do excuse my manner of appearance. I just don't know how many people will watch this, and I'd rather not be recognizable. I am an independent researcher seeking a private audience with you to discuss an important matter. I guarantee that it is in your interest to honor this request. Believe me, if my purpose was not significant, I would not risk my life pursuing it. The reason I climbed your tower was to get your attention. If I had sought this via conventional means, I would be much less likely to have success because you are a busy man with many responsibilities. I'll get my contact information to your campaign so that if you are interested, you can respond. As for anyone else who's watching, please help make this video go viral so that it gets to Mr. Trump, and be sure to get out and vote for Mr. Trump in the 2016 election. Thank you.
So there is a bit to unpack in this clip. It's like some Joker shit, honestly. But it does seem like he is cautious about this whole situation and feels like he may not actually meet with Trump in person at the tower. So he's putting up this video as a failsafe because he knows if he actually makes it to the Trump Tower and climbs it, there's going to be so much attention on him that eventually Trump will be led back to this video and he'll find out what Steven Rogata is all about, even if he never met him in person. So with the video finally out and all of his plans ready to be executed, he got in his dad's car and began the 250-mile trek up to New York City. Steven Rogata would arrive in New York City on August 10th, where he checked into the Bowery Grand Hotel at approximately 10 a.m. Later that afternoon, he made his way to the Trump Tower with his gear on 5th Avenue in Manhattan. That afternoon around 4 p.m. he entered the Trump Tower and traveled to the 5th floor terrace of the tower, which is open to the public. and it's on this terrace that he would begin his nearly 2-hour-long suction cup ascension. Just as Stephen had ascended from the 5th to the 6th floor, bystanders began to take notice of the climber and cameras started being pulled out. The climb was being streamed both on Facebook and Periscope, and it wouldn't take long before the mainstream media had cameras on the scene. Media was beginning to report that the climber was some sort of stunt man, which honestly isn't too far from the truth, but they had no idea the gravity of the deed that he had to accomplish. Stephen was gonna make it to the 58th floor of the Trump Tower and deliver his important message to the future president of the United States.
Well, he's been called the human fly, Spider-Man, an adrenaline junkie on the internet through social media. We've been listening to WCBS, and this man, who since a little bit before 3 o'clock this afternoon has attempted to scale the Trump Towers right there in New York in the heart of Midtown, shutting down traffic.
One thing that has to be worrying for the NYPD as they consider what their next move is the man on the side of the building does not seem to be tiring and does not seem to have any difficulty doing what he's doing, using giant suction cups to methodically move slowly upward. He's able to take breaks, he's able to move left, he's able to move right. In short, he knows what he is doing.
Police would arrive shortly and would try to coerce Stephen into canceling his plan with verbal negotiations, but Stephen wasn't having any of it. He had a mission to accomplish. The danger wasn't only present for Stephen himself, but this was also extremely dangerous for people on the ground, people at the floor of the building, because at one point during his climb, Stephen had a laptop that he had accidentally dropped and it fell crashing down onto the street. Now, fortunately, nobody was injured from this, but police were hot on his heels playing a game of cat and mouse trying to figure out how can they get this guy off the side of the building without anybody being injured. The police decided the best way to nab the climber from the side of the building would be to intercept him at one of the removable ventilation panels that lined the wall of the Trump Tower. But until he reached one of these panels, they were pretty much SOL. It was a 2-hour game of cat and mouse, like I said before. So for almost 2 hours, this guy was just climbing his heart out, going all the way from the 6th floor to the 21st floor of the Trump Tower, and all of this was being caught on live stream, being viewed by millions around the world. Finally, after an arduous 16-story climb, police had finally cornered Stephen at the 21st floor at one of those removable ventilation panels. The panel was removed and Stephen was forcefully pulled inside the window by police officers around 6:20 p.m. Both Stephen's climb and his chances of meeting Trump that day came to an end. He was arrested and taken into custody. Now, an interesting point to note about this whole climb is that Trump wasn't actually present in the building at the time of the climb. He was doing, ironically, a rally in Virginia, Stephen's home state. Now, it's unknown if Stephen was or was not aware of this, but I don't really think his plan leveraged too much on the fact that Trump would actually meet up with him the day of the climb. I think he was more so hoping that the viral spread of this situation would catch Trump's attention and Trump would reach out to him. And in a way, Trump did reach out, but it's nowhere near the level that he was hoping for. He got acknowledged by Trump in a tweet, and this is what that tweet reads right here. Great job today by the NYPD in protecting the people and saving the climber. So I think it's safe to say from this tweet that, yeah, Trump's happy that everybody was okay, but he definitely doesn't want to meet you, bro. You soiled it. Now let's talk about consequences, because you don't try to scale a 50-story building in one of the wealthiest areas of New York City, without getting in some legal trouble. Stephen was given charges of reckless endangerment and criminal trespassing and was sent to the Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital for a mental evaluation under police supervision. After the stay at the hospital, he was briefly in jail, but his $10,000 bail bond was posted and he was released. On a later date during his trial, Stephen would plead guilty to his charges of reckless endangerment and criminal trespassing, but was ultimately let free from serving jail time for his crime after striking a deal with criminal court judge Joanne Waters. The terms of the deal would be followed for an entire year, and if he violated any of them, he would be sent back to jail. Here are Judge Waters' terms. 1. He must undergo mental health treatment at a specified treatment center near his home in Virginia. 2. Every month, he must write a letter updating the court on how his treatment is going. 3. Over the course of the next year, he must be enrolled in college as a full-time student or be working at least 20 hours a week. 4. He's required to stay away from President Donald Trump and Trump Tower for the next year. 5. He can't be arrested during the next year. 6. If he abides by all of the above, Rogata will have permanently avoided jail time in the case and the reckless endangerment charge will be dropped. 7. If he violates any of the terms, Rogata could spend up to a year in jail. And as of this time in 2019, Stephen Rogata has avoided jail time. It looks like he followed all of the terms set by the judge. Things have been really quiet around him ever since. There's not too many developments around what he's doing in his life or what he's doing now. It definitely looks like he's kept a low profile since this event went down. I feel like overall he got away with this situation pretty well. I mean, sure, he didn't accomplish his goal. He never got, a meeting with Trump or whatever. But you could really face some serious jail time for a crime like that. So I guess fortunately for him, he's a free man. No new developments have come out into what he's doing now in life, but hey, if you're watching this, buddy, reach out to me. I'd love to hear what you're up to. So let me know what you guys think about this video in the comments section, and make sure you shoot me a follow on Instagram. I've been posting a lot on there. Get some exclusives. Check out my boys over at Cool Shirts, 10% off code in the description box, and shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys a lot. Wavy Web Surf out. Peace.